Well, I was at St. Vladimir Seminary. I had converted to Orthodox Church at Wheaton College and then went to the seminary afterwards. When I finished the seminary, I was invited to go and teach when I finished St. Vladimir's, I was invited to go to teach in St. Herman Seminary because they needed an Old Testament professor. While I was there, I was also at first teaching patristics and later church history. So this in 1982 and was there until 1996 with a short break in the middle. But the school had been founded in 1973 because the state of Alaska, after the Russian Revolution, they had very few priests. They didn't have a school. They had some education for priests, but a very small number. So after the canonization of St. Herman, this kind of called attention to Alaska, and so the Father Joseph Krita and Archbishop Gregory founded the seminary in Kodiak. And so it had been running for more than 10 years when I came. But our students were mostly Alaskan natives, and the idea was to train them, many of them to serve as readers in the villages, because there were a very small number of priests relative to, I think, about 86 parishes in the villages of Alaska. So most of the villages had services without priests, the reader services, and our students were being trained to help conduct those services, but also with the idea of preparing for deacons and priests. So we had a 4-year undergraduate program at that point. We had a bachelor's granted by the state of Alaska. It was different, of course, because the people were, we had mostly Yupik Eskimos, but we also had Aleuts and Indian and Kodiak Aleuts students. They all had different languages, but let's say, standard language, official language in Alaska is English, so we were able to teach in English. And because each group had their own language, that's how the normal intercommunication was with English. So that was not so much of a difficulty for me. But adjusting to the students, different culture was a little bit of a challenge, but once you get used to it, you can adapt your teaching to the students and how their level and how they're learning. So they were because the positions mostly where they were working for didn't have salaries, and they were very low salaries. They mostly came out of interest, that they wanted to be part of the church life. So, and in the Alaskan village, the church in a way is the center of village life. So that made for a very pleasant environment, that the students were sort of had genuine interest and desire to serve the church. So we didn't really have the problem of students that were there but didn't have interest in the program this way. But they were there because of the program. So they were there for for religious reasons more. So this so the part of the interest of being there was getting to know something about the history of the church there, the missionaries. We had St. Herman of Alaska had lived in a small island right near the seminary. His relics were in the main church in the town. So we had services, Kathis, every week to St. Herman, and could venerate his relics. There was other saints that were part of the mission, but then we also, from the students, learned about the important people in their villages and things that had happened there. So that was very interesting. And then also getting to visit the students sometimes in their villages. And I guess traveling around, it's a beautiful state. And but I guess the way of life was based on hunting and fishing mostly. They don't have very much agriculture there. And so it was, when you went to the village, you were kind of living in a different world, a kind of not so connected to our modern society, but also a world in which the church was a central role. So these were communities, although in many ways they were convert communities. They had, of course, St Herman came more than 200 years ago, but up in the eBOOK area, some of the villages had converted in late of the 1930s. So these were, let's say, rather places that culturally were rather recent as being Orthodox cultures, but they were very zealous, and it was nice to live in an Orthodox society. Even though it was not like a country like Greece or Russia, but it was a society within the tundra area, and you had more, let's say, area full of villages where the Orthodox Church, an Orthodox calendar and life was kind of the central and kind of the way of life. So that was a really nice experience.
Can you speak more specifically to the question of how Orthodoxy was lived by the locals and things that you maybe learned from them about the faith?
Yeah. Well, one thing that struck me is that they had a very strong sense of hospitality. So there was, and that their life was, let's say, relatively undistracted. So they were not caught up in. I mean, they went hunting and fishing, and they, many of them like to do other things, to watch movies and stuff like that. But there wasn't a lot of, let's say, other agendas other than just living and the life in the church for our students. So that was something, I guess, that was very nice about them. And then that they also were very, let's say, community-oriented in the sense of working together and in a kind of cooperative way, sharing kind of life. Was not so individualistic, perhaps, as we are, but I guess the centrality of the church life, the services, the preparing for singing, the interest in singing. I remember we were traveling down a river for some family thing. They had to move from one village, maybe the winter village, to the summer location, and just having the young people singing an akathist along the way as just a normal part of the boat trip. I thought that was very nice. It wasn't something that was organized by a priest or a church. It was just something that they decided to do themselves. They had an interest in the saints and the Christian faith sort of on their own, I guess, because the services, they had them in their own languages, originally the native languages, but then now also with English. Some places had some Slavonic still, but it made it all accessible to them. They had that for most of the time that they've been Christian. So there wasn't a disconnect, especially in the village where even the priest may only come occasionally. The life, church life, really centered on the people themselves. They had to make the services happen, and so it was more organic and not just something passive where some specialist would be there and you come and just attend. But that was yeah. So it was very nice being there. I don't know.